Alabama. Roll On North America Tour, presented by Kenworth. Saturday, October 19th, Wells Fargo Arena. Special guest, 𝗙liche𝗹𝗹𝗆. Alabama, live. All your favorite songs from the greatest country band of all time. On sale now at 𝗙𝗵𝗋𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃.com. Produced by Outback Presents.
Welcome into the Channel Seed Studios. It's bigger than 12. I'm Jake Brend, joined by Derek Duke. Derek, how are you, my friend?
Jake, doing great as always. Excited to be back for another episode. Got a lot of feedback from last week's show. A lot of great feedback. People sliding in my DMs through, text, whatever, emails. I've had some emails about it too. So been a great start so far to the season for the show, and so glad to have so many great listeners and people follow along with us. So, and on the other thing, 3 straight days of Big 12 football started Thursday with Arizona State playing Texas State. San Marcos is, I went to the game with my wife, drank $4 Tall Boy Busch Lights, got quite a bit of attention for that. Well, yeah, never seen that before. What a game that was. And also wanted to give a shout out to our producer, Aiden. Had a birthday Saturday and got the gift. I texted him this. He got the gift of Iowa State not losing a game thanks to the bye week. So happy birthday, man.
Thank you. I told you this. I responded to the text. You have no idea how many birthdays have been ruined by Iowa State losing over the years.
Oh, yeah, it would have been close to the Ohio game, right? I guess I don't think there was an Ohio game. I don't know what I'm.
Yeah, I know it's been ruined by Cyhawk more than one time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Oh,
Kyler Murray crushed my dreams one year. I remember. It was.
That is rough. Oh man. Well, yeah. Happy birthday, Aiden. Happy belated birthday. Does a lot here, but yeah. Let's get into this Big 12. I guess before that, I was just thinking we've got a lot of, I would imagine, Iowa State listeners. And thank you so much for your support. And by this point, if you don't know, it is a Big 12 focus show. We try to probably go 80-20 Big 12 to Iowa State ratio. So if you're a Cyclone fan, if you're a Hawkeye fan, if you're a fan of anyone, thank you for listening. But if you are one of those fans and you've got a friend who's an Oklahoma State fan or a cousin who's a Texas Tech fan, point them our way. Let them know that this podcast on the Iowa Everywhere Podcast Network is it's a Big 12 focused show. So this is for everyone to enjoy. And thank you for listening. Been getting some good reviews. Let's get into the rebranded 12 pack. We're going to jump around 12 Big 12 storylines. And Derek, let's start with the most impressive team from this past week.
For me, the most impressive team, there were a few to pick from, but I've got to go with UCF, man. The Knights took care of TCU on the road, 35-34, and what a game that was. UCF was down 28-7 at one point in the third quarter, came all the way back. Their offense got rolling. Their defense came up with some big stops. You couldn't ask for a better way to kick off Big 12 play than that game, because that was awesome what we saw in Fort Worth. It looked like it was going to be an ugly game, but UCF fought all the way back tooth and nail, and they did a great job, an outstanding job. So they get my nod for most impressive Big 12 team of the week.
They sit alone in first place of the Big 12.
For now.
A team that might soon be in first place. I'm going to take the Kansas State Wildcats because they pick up a Big 12 win that doesn't count as a Big 12 win. They slaughter Arizona 35-7, and they answered pretty much every question I had about them, at least in one way or the other. Defense spectacular. The offense was dynamic, and you could just tell that they had been saving their best weapon, which was Avery Johnson's legs. They were saving it for a game that was important, and you could tell that it was important on a Friday night standalone game. Just absolutely took it to Arizona, which leads pretty well into the next question, which is who is the most disappointing team? And I might as well just go right in and say who just lost the game that I talked about, and that's Arizona. I infamously bought Arizona stock last week. I probably could have waited a week to buy some more stock because it plummeted even lower. Just an unprepared team, a lot of penalties. Didn't score after the first drive, so once the script was ripped up, 0 points. Noah Fafita did not look good. Obviously, McMillan can only do so much, and that defense and their lines on both sides of the ball don't look like they're ready to compete in the top echelon of the Big 12. And that was disappointing for me because I've lost some money on the Wildcats this year, and I, of course, now look stupid after what I said last week.
Yeah, you bought stock in them, and I told you not to. I was selling everything I had. I was cleaning out the entire house and selling the house, maybe as is. I don't know. But yeah, I was definitely out on Arizona. My most disappointing team of the weekend, it's just depressing to talk about. West Virginia, they lost 38-34 to Pitt in the backyard brawl on the road. Had a 10-point lead with less than 5 minutes to play and blew it. Secondary got absolutely torched towards the end of the game. This loss, to me, puts Neil Brown right back on the hot seat. And this loss was so bad that West Virginia's defensive coordinator shut down his social media because he didn't want to hear it from the fans. And, after seeing Cincinnati blow a lead to Pitt and now West Virginia in back-to-back weeks, maybe the Big 12, they shouldn't schedule Pittsburgh anymore, because I don't know if I can take a comeback win from behind from Pittsburgh, because I just don't want to see any more of them moving on here.
Yeah, they've abused the Big 12 back-to-back weeks. And it wasn't just they went out and beat them. They went out and beat West Virginia. They went out and beat Cincinnati in probably the most heartbreaking fashion possible. So yeah, that a really, really disappointing, not just a loss for West Virginia, but a really disappointing start to the season overall. We'll get back to the 12-pack, but first let's give thanks to our friends over at Freedom Tire, Quentin Crowner and his great team across central Iowa. They love supporting local businesses. They are a local business. We're also a locally owned family business. They have been doing it for 50 years. We've been doing it for about 2 here at Iowa Everywhere. Just shows the great product, the great help that you're going to get over there. Freedom Tire can be your home for new tires from any major brand, as well as vehicle maintenance and repairs any time of year. Of course, it's about to be a good time of year to get your car looked at before the winter. There's nothing worse than having car problems in the winter. It can be preventative maintenance or it can be performance issues. They're backed by experts to get your vehicle back on the road. Again, find a Freedom Tire with your team of Quentin Crowner and all of his team anywhere in the Metro Altoona, Ames, Fleur Drive in Des Moines, West Des Moines, and Urbandale over on Hickman, or you can visit freedomtire.com. Thank you to Quentin Crowner and his team for all they do to support the program. We already mentioned them. UCF with a huge win. Is Central Florida a Big 12 title contender?
If KJ Jefferson can play like he did in the second half, then absolutely. I don't see why they couldn't be. In the first half, KJ was 4 for 11. Get this, 4 for 11 for 64 yards and a touchdown. Second half, 9 of 11 for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. To me, KJ was the main reason why UCF won the game. He led 2 10-plus play scoring drives in the fourth quarter alone. We already know what this team is capable of doing in the ground game. They ran for almost 300 yards against TCU. And eventually, like Sonny Dykes said in that post game, they wore that defense down. And it wasn't a perfect game by any means on either side of the ball for UCF, but they got what they wanted to come in and get, which was a win. The pieces are there for UCF to be a title contender, in my opinion at least. It's going to be KJ who has to put it together. He's going to be the one that puts everything together, and he did that, especially in the second half on Saturday night. So if KJ Jefferson can play like that, then yeah, UCF's definitely a Big 12 title contender to me.
And look what KJ's second half did for the running game. Look at the lanes that opened up, not only for the running backs, but for him himself. He was dynamic on the ground. He had that huge 3rd and 1 where he just plowed over the line of scrimmage, looked like a fullback. UCF is good, and I know your publication, Heartland College Sports, put out an article showing that ESPN's FPI or BPI, whatever the heck it is, has UCF as the favorites in the Big 12, which was a little startling of a headline. But that right there, on top of what they did on Saturday to be so resilient to just claw back into that game and really shut down Josh Hoover and the TCU weapons in the second half. Really impressive. And it's yeah, they're contenders. They are certainly right in the hunt for the end of the season, and we'll get right to it. TCU, a really, really rough loss for the Horned Frogs. Are you buying or selling them?
I know they lost, but I'm not selling on them just yet. I'm not going to give up on them quite yet. Josh Hoover looked really good in this game. He threw for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. TCU started the game with 3 straight scoring drives to start. Unfortunately for them, in the second half, they started settling for field goals, and the defense, like I said earlier, it really wore down as the game went on. But I feel like a lot of teams in this conference are going to struggle against UCF just because of how physical they are in that run game. I mean, good luck. Seriously, good luck to teams trying to tackle KJ Jefferson and RJ Harvey in short yardage situations, because it is extremely hard to do. Like, it's very hard to do. And I was really impressed by the way Josh Hoover came out, and then he was on fire right away. So if he can keep up that level, consistently throughout a game, he was still pretty good in the second half. They just weren't able to finish those drives. But this was a hiccup for TCU. But ultimately, I think they'll be fine. They'll definitely be a competitor in this conference without a doubt.
Yeah, they're never going to get, I guess I shouldn't say never. I don't think they're going to get back to where they were in 2022 when they made the national championship. But if you look at the recipe for what they had, it was just a dog of a quarterback in Max Duggan and then a plethora of weapons. And man, Savion Williams, he had those 2 ridiculous catches in the first half for touchdowns, and Jack Betch looked incredible. So they've got the weapons there, and it's kind of the same recipe they had 2 seasons ago. I said before the year they were one of those teams that I thought would probably be better than perceived, just because of, it seems like last year was worst case scenario. I think this year still is going to level out. And if UCF really is who we think they are, TCU was 3 or 4 feet away from beating them on a game-winning field goal at the buzzer. I agree. I'm not going to sell TCU. I might even buy a little bit, because I do think they are a top half team in the Big 12.
I got to ask you, didn't you pick I thought you picked TCU to go to the Big 12 title game, did you not?
This year?
Was that this year? Did you pick TCU to?
No, I didn't pick them this year. I think Iowa State, Utah this year for the Big 12. But I want to say our very first show, we did a segment where it was most overrated and most underrated team, or maybe something that's like what that. It was. And I said TCU is the most underrated. And to give myself credit, we're going to dig into them in just a couple questions. I did say Kansas was the most overrated. So I feel vindicated on that one.
Speaking of a Kansas school, Jake, are you back on the Kansas State train after that impressive win over Arizona on Friday night?
Yes. That picture was painted of what K-State can be if they want to reach their best. I don't know if they'll play a better game this season. And the good news is they won't have to play that well to achieve their goals, because they are in that upper echelon. We asked the question last week, were they conservative on offense because they didn't trust Avery Johnson, or because they were just saving a lot of it for future weeks? And I think Friday showed that they were saving a lot, because Johnson ran more than he had the first 3 games. He ran for more yards, and you almost forget just how dynamic he is on the ground and what that can do for the offense. And again, when you've got DJ Giddens, it doesn't necessarily matter how much you're spreading out the field on deep balls or stuff like that, because they are so dynamic on the ground. And that's not even to mention how impressive their defense was, because we had questions about that too. I'm back on K-State. They will be in the mix at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm on the train, but I'm not in first class. And honestly, I don't even know if trains have first class. I don't know. I've had no idea, because
I've never been on a train.
Yeah, I've never been on a train either. So it's kind of a weird question we threw in here, but you get what I mean here. Their defense of theirs came up really big. They made Arizona one-dimensional by shutting down the run game, and they didn't give up really any big plays in that game at all, which was very impressive. They held Arizona to under 330 yards, which is going to be extremely hard for defenses in this conference to do against Arizona. But nobody wants to hear about Kansas State's defense, because all they care about is Avery Johnson. And to be fair, he was excellent in this game. He was accurate. He was efficient.
Really good.
really good. And he ran for over 100 yards too, which is exactly what you want to see from him. Avery did everything in this game, like I said, that you wanted to see. And most importantly for him as a young quarterback, he didn't turn the ball over at all. No fumbles, no interceptions. Played a very clean and efficient game. I was very impressed with Johnson.
Other than his play at the end of the first half.
Okay, yeah.
But yes, other than that.
The situational awareness in the first half was like almost Dion levels bad, but still, he's a young guy, so he'll get used to that. He'll get that down eventually.
He's a young guy, and you could guarantee, I would place $1,000 bet that will never ever happen to him again. That's a mistake you make once, and you learn from it. And luckily, it didn't end up being fatal because they plowed through Arizona. And we're gonna stick on Arizona and compare them to their cross-state rival. Who is the better team, Arizona or Arizona State?
I can't even believe if you'd have told me we would have asked this question before the season started, I'd have said you're crazy. But
even like a week ago.
Yeah, give me the Sun Devils, man. They're 3-0 for the first time in 5 years. And to me, they are just balanced across the board. Don't get me wrong. Arizona, as we talked about before, they have some fun pieces with Noah Fafita at quarterback and McMillan at receiver. But what about the rest of that team? They have yet to impress me in really any game that they have played this season. Meanwhile, Arizona State has ran the football with authority with 𝗀𝗏𝗏, and they played really physical style of defense that I really love. Arizona may have the better skill players, but Arizona State is better in the trenches and everywhere else. So I'm going with Arizona State here because to me, they're just a far more balanced team right now than Arizona is.
I did love what I saw from Sam Leavitt. Just ballsy performance. He's just one of those quarterbacks. You don't see an NFL future, but man, you want him on your team. And to do what he did you can speak to it, I'm guessing, just a raucous atmosphere in a game that was probably the biggest in Texas State history with so much on the line. Get down 2 scores early to bounce back. Really impressive. But despite the great win, I'm still going to lean Arizona. I don't feel great about it. I might change my mind in 1 week. I need to see one more week of Arizona State. Their first 2 wins haven't necessarily aged well. Wyoming is 0-3, and they just got slaughtered by BYU. And Mississippi State just got embarrassed on their home field by Toledo.
Oof.
It's really close. I'll take Arizona and don't put it in pen. Don't let the concrete dry because I might change my mind.
No, that's totally fair, man. Because I did see what Toledo did to Mississippi State. My goodness, I can't believe Mississippi State paid like $1.5 million for that. So, for sure, without a doubt, man. It is hot as we know in the state of Arizona, but is it going to be hotter than West Virginia head coach Neil Brown's seat here in a bit?
I can't speak to how hot it is in Arizona. I know it's been pretty warm in Iowa, and warm is probably the word I would describe to use Neil Brown's seat, but it is getting dangerously close to bumping that burner up just a little bit. We know how hot his seat was entering last season, and they proved everybody wrong. Had a really, really good year on paper. But here is something alarming that I came across today on social media. Following just an awful loss to Pitt, the West Virginia fan base is they're going through it. And I feel bad for them. I can see why. This is from CT_Hurst25 on Twitter. Sounds like a good fella. So Neil Brown, in his tenure at West Virginia, which dates back to, I believe, 2019,
that's correct,
has just 3 wins against FBS opponents that have finished with 8+ wins. Just 3. One of them was in a bowl game against a academy school, and the other was against probably the worst K-State team of the last. Yeah, there we are. Thurston. Nice appropriate name. Yeah. So his tweet was wrong. Somebody fact checked him in the comments. which is where I came up with the other two. And yeah, mentions Dana Holgerson's worst West Virginia team beat an Oklahoma State team that went 10-3. The fan base clearly not very happy with Neal Brown. It's going to get warm if things don't turn around.
To me, it's hotter than I'll change it from Arizona. It's hotter than a Texas summer day. And as somebody who knows about that firsthand, I'm already sweating just thinking about it. Neal Brown's seat is so hot that he should sit down if he doesn't want his ass burned, because I talked about that game earlier, but that kind of sums up really the Neal Brown era in Morgantown so far. Like, there have been some high points, but when it matters most, they come right back down. Neal Brown is in year 6 now, since 2019, year 6 at West Virginia. Jake, get this. He has an overall record of 32-31 in his 4 games under 500 in Big 12 play. I have seen coaches firsthand get fired for having better records than that. And looking at the schedule, they still have to play Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, and UCF. There's a good chance right now that they finish the season with 5 or more losses. In West Virginia, here's another fun part of this. West Virginia actually extended his contract to run through 2027 and is set to make $16 million between now and then. According to his contract, he would be owed 75% of that, of the remaining balance, if he is fired before the end of that. So West Virginia, they're kind of stuck with Neal Brown right now. We went through this like a year ago or 2 years ago when he had struggled so much, and we were already talking about this buyout because that's all everybody want to talk about. Well, now you're stuck with him for even longer because you have another 4 years after this with him, no matter what, and you're going to owe him a bunch of money. So you're kind of married to him at this point, and there's really no option for a divorce unless you're willing, or your boosters are willing, to fork up a ton of money to get him out of town.
And yeah, that's not a rich athletic department at all. So they're in a tough predicament, and that's a program that it should be pretty good. Being in that part of the country, you're one of 2 Big 12 schools up in that area on the Upper East Coast, and they just haven't reached their full potential really at all in the Big 12. I know they had a couple good runs under Dana Holgerson with Will Greer, but yeah, that program feels like a sleeping giant that has not been tapped into its full potential yet, and I don't think they're going to get to that potential with Neal Brown. And they've got a huge one this week against Kansas. Woof, what a tough loss for them. Should the Jayhawks, I'll add a word into the script. Should the Jayhawks consider benching Jaylen Daniels?
If he plays like he did in the first 2 weeks of the season, or 3 weeks of the season, then yes, they should. Jaylen Daniels has twice as many interceptions as touchdowns through 3 games. And that doesn't even account for the fumbles he's had, because he's had a few fumbles as well. He's completing, get this, less than 55% of his passes, which is a career low. He's hurt his team more than he's helped it by, I think that's pretty obvious. And let's face it, if Jaylen Daniels is his old self, Kansas would be 3-0 right now, and this team is in serious trouble of not making a bowl game, which is crazy considering that they were picked to finish in the top 5 of the conference, and that Jaylen was a dark horse Heisman contender. So for me, it's certainly troubling. I mean, when you look at all of what he's done so far this year, in the Illinois game, he threw costly interceptions. This game, he did the same exact thing. It's like, at some point, you got to quit beating your head against the wall and just stop and, try something else, because at this point, if he plays like he has been this year against West Virginia this week, there's no chance of Kansas winning that game. 0 chance. So I think Kansas should definitely consider it. And it's funny. I've actually gotten like emails from Kansas fans this week. I don't know why, saying I've been too harsh on Jaylen Daniels. I don't think I've been harsh at all. I'm just telling you how it is. Like, when you throw this many interceptions and turn the ball over the way he has and played the way he has, like, what quarterback deserves to really get another chance or opportunity after that? Because to me, at some point, you got to, when push comes to shove, you got to play your better guy. And right now, I don't think Jaylen Daniels is the option.
Jason Bean isn't walking through that door, but if Jason Bean was behind one of those doors, if Jason Bean was at quarterback, Kansas would be 3-0 and a top 15 team in the country right now. No question. No questions asked. But he's not. So I don't know what you do. Cole Ballard is the backup. I know he got some run at the end of last year when Bean and Daniels both got hurt. Looked decent, probably decent enough where if Daniels does go out and have a really bad first half against West Virginia, probably decent enough to throw him in there. But yeah, it looks bad, and it's one of the most unexpected storylines of the Big 12 season so far, because I already mentioned it. Kansas was one of those teams that I thought was a little overrated. I did not see this, though. And I didn't see the reason that they would lose at home to UNLV or on the road to Illinois. I didn't think the reason would be pretty much just Jaylen Daniels. I don't really know where else you could place the blame. And that's a pretty jarring statement, and I know Kansas fans probably won't like to hear that. But if it doesn't get better, you got to consider going another way and try and salvaging this season.
No, for sure. I mean, Kansas fans don't want to hear it. I mean, I don't even really want to talk. I don't want to sit here and crap all over Jaylen Daniels. He's a great quarterback. I think he has the potential to be a great quarterback. But yeah, I don't want to sit here and talk negatively about him. So I just don't want to do that. So we'll move on to a different quarterback here. Can Alan Bowman take down Utah this weekend?
I know he can. Can he cut down on the turnovers? Dating back to last year, he's thrown a pick in every game but one since they beat Oklahoma, which was at the beginning of November, I believe. So he just, there's no way around it. He has to limit the mistakes because Cam Rising looks like he's going to be back. You're playing a full-strength Utah team. You're going to need to be on your best. Oklahoma State is a really good team, I think. They're not good enough to overcome 1 or 2 or 3 turnovers at home against a team as good as Utah. And I don't know if I trust Bowman, if I'm being honest. I don't know if I trust him.
That's totally fair to take. And to me, it's going to depend on which Alan Bowman we get. If we get the Arkansas Alan Bowman, I don't think so. But if we get the guy who threw 5 touchdown passes against Tulsa, then yeah, they definitely have a chance. He's been turnover prone, as we know, throughout his career. And he can't do that against a team like Utah because they will make you pay. He needs to get the ball in his playmakers' hands with Presley, Owens, and Shetron. So, and I also want to see Ollie Gordon. It kind of goes beyond Alan Bowman here, too. I want to see Ollie Gordon. He's averaged just 2.6 yards per carry on his last 34 attempts. And during a press conference, I remember Mike Gundy said that smart coaches find their best ways to get their best players in space. Well, now would be a good time to do that because Ollie is arguably the best player in this game on both sides. Considering how talented both sides are, that's a pretty impressive thing to say. But I think Alan Bowman is capable of doing it. But are we going to see it? I have no idea. But again, if he plays like he did in Tulsa, this team definitely has a chance to do it.
It's the biggest Big 12 game to date of the season.
For sure.
I'm not going to say
sure.
ever. That'd be a little absurd of a statement, but it is a huge game. And yeah, you're going to need all of your guys to show up. And it's big for the pride and the ego of the original standing members. You know, your Iowa States, your Oklahoma States, your Iowa States. It's important because I know there is probably, at least among the fan bases, there's pride of you don't want to let a Utah or you don't want to let an Arizona come in and dominate the conference. So it is a huge game for Oklahoma State, and they've got to go to Kansas State pretty soon as well. So if you lose this, it might be time to kiss your, gosh, I can't think of the expression, kiss your chances away, goodbye to a potential Big 12 title trip. So a team that's not going to go to Arlington, put it in Sharpie, I can confidently say this, Colorado. Were you shocked by their big win over an in-state rival?
I was, because I wasn't sure who was going to win the game. I knew Colorado State is a bad football team. I've seen it already this season, but it was good to see Colorado take care of business on the road, which I think they definitely needed after that ugly loss to Nebraska the week before. They flipped a switch, and Shedeur Sanders went off tossing 4 scores, went over 300 yards on the day. And Travis Hunter continues to show us why he's the best player in college football. So that was really great to see. I know that Colorado's record isn't going to be good, but Travis Hunter should be in New York City at the end of the season. He's the best player in college football. And if that award is truly about giving the best player the award, then at the very least, he should get the invite to New York City, because he is more than worthy of that award to me.
Yeah, I thought this game was a coin flip. I picked Colorado State to win in the Iowa Everywhere column by Randy Peterson. Shout out to Matty Van Winkle. He was the only one who picked Colorado to win. But even though I picked Colorado State, I still thought this was a coin flip. So I'm not shocked they won. I am shocked by the fashion they won in. Just dominated them. And I know Colorado State is not a good team, but I also don't think Colorado is a good team either. So for them to do that, really impressive. And plus, I don't have a problem with what Shedeur Sanders did after the game, refusing to shake the Colorado State quarterback's hand. He was talking trash, and you reserve the right to do that, I guess. And I mean, if I'm in Sanders' shoes, I'd probably shake the guy's hand, be the bigger man. But I also don't have a problem at all with that. And I know that's kind of just about the Sanders persona. But yeah, impressive win for Colorado. And we do know they do have a soft-ish schedule. They are already at 2 wins. I know it was a really, really rough loss in Lincoln, but there's still a path to 6 wins that I don't think they reach, but there's a path there. I'll give them a little hope. 3 teams
sure.
that...
Go ahead.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, I was going to say there is a path there for them, because I picked 5 and 7 before the season. This Colorado State win to me definitely boosted their chances. So I think there is a chance for them to get to 6. I just wanted to throw that out there before we moved on. So it is possible that Colorado can still make it to a bowl game, which would be huge for them.
3 teams where I don't think I see a bowl game. We've got Houston, Baylor, and Cincinnati. They all won. They all won this week. Of those 3, who needed a win the most?
This was a tough one for me, but I'm going to go with Baylor here. I think there's no way they could have gone 1 and 2 before conference play and make a bowl game. And they were really, I don't know how much you watched this game. They were in a stalemate against Air Force, and they had just a 6-3 lead at halftime.
Awful.
It felt like I was watching a game from like 1955. That's how rough it was. But eventually in that game, Dave Aranda huddled the entire team on the sidelines and just ripped into them. And that is the Dave Aranda that I have been waiting to see for years in Waco. And he showed some emotion. He showed some fight, and his players actually responded to that, which was awesome to see. Plus, I think they found their quarterback moving forward with Sawyer Robinson. So, that wasn't a win for Dave that took him necessarily off the hot seat, but it was one of those wins for Baylor that can help them build confidence heading into conference play, which was why I really think they needed to get this game.
Yeah, it was an unlosable game. There's no doubt about that. And I would argue for my pick, which I'm going Cincinnati, I think this was also just a game they could not lose in any fashion and expect for Satterfield to keep his job after this year. You just lost a painful game to Pitt that you should not have lost. And then you're in a dogfight with Miami of Ohio, and you're able to jump out to a sizable lead in the 4th quarter and hang on. I think of those 3, I'd still have the most confidence in Cincinnati. Just, it's kind of like picking between, I don't know, 3 foods you don't really like, but I would go Cincinnati. Yeah, if you had to tell me one of those 3 teams is making a bowl game, I think I would pick the Bearcats. So to avoid an upset loss to Miami of Ohio, I think that's where my answer goes. And we're going to tie
definitely picking the bottom of the barrel with those teams, man. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, no doubt. And we're going to tie it all together. We've asked this question before. Was it a good or a bad weekend for the Big 12?
It's a fair question to ask when you're in non-conference play, but as you know, I've been on the optimistic side of this, and I'm not normally an optimistic kind of person, but for the last few weeks I have been. But honestly, today I can't do it. I think it was a bad weekend for the Big 12. Kansas losing to UNLV, that was terrible. Arizona getting blown out by Kansas State, even though technically it's the teams in the same conference. It still wasn't a good look for Arizona, who people thought was going to be a Big 12 title contender. And then West Virginia, literally, to quite frankly put it, shitting down their leg against Pitt was the final turd on the shit Sunday for the Big 12. So, most of the conference did take care of business, but those losses by Kansas and West Virginia were just brutal. And the problem is now you don't have any more non-conference games to really redeem yourself heading into conference play.
Except for Iowa State, Arkansas State. Huge win away. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm going to say good.
Okay.
And my thought process in this in my head was there is a list of 5 contenders in the Big 12, I think. Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa State, Central Florida. None of those teams embarrassed themselves this weekend. I think at this point, you can throw Kansas away. You can throw West Virginia away. You can throw teams below that away. At this point, it might not be great for perception if teams below them lose or if those teams lose, but they are not going to be the teams that are representing the Big 12 on the biggest stage later in the season. So I think as long as teams like Kansas State, and let me make the point for Kansas State, Arizona is in the Big 12, but it is still taking time to adjust. And I think it is better for the conference if the old Big 12 teams handle the new Big 12 teams. And I know that just sounds weird. I think from a national perspective, a lot of people expect these Pac-12 teams to come in. They're coming from a better conference. They expect them to come in and dominate. I think it's a good look for the conference long-term if those pillars of the conference are able to kind of stick it to them. And Kansas State doing that to Arizona, I do think helps the conference perception-wise, at least in the long term. But you make a valid point watching West Virginia, watching Kansas, watching those teams fall apart to not good to, I'd say not good to average teams. UNLV is probably average. I'll give them credit. They're pretty good. But yeah, that wraps up our 12 pack. Thanks for tuning in to that segment, but we've still got so much more to go. We're going to talk Cyclones in just a minute, and we'll close with our picks. But first, Aiden Wyatt, the birthday boy of 3 or 4 days ago, has a trivia question about the state of Iowa for us.
All right, before I ask this, Derek, are you a geography buff by chance?
I could work my way around a Texas map. I don't know if I can for Iowa or really any other state, but I know my way around a Texas map. I guess I'm okay at it, I guess. As
long as you're not like a savant and this isn't a layup or something, this should be a good question. How many states border Iowa? Bonus points if you can name them.
I'll let you go first. I should know this.
Okay. Nebraska's one of them. Minnesota's one. Oh, man. Illinois. And Missouri.
Is that your final answer?
So
yes.
You're at 4 right now.
6.
Oh, it's 6? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska, South Dakota.
Correct.
Oh my gosh, I forget. So the northwest part of Iowa does touch
that's
South
a tricky
Dakota.
one. Yeah.
That's right. I do remember looking at a map.
And then the northeast touches Wisconsin as well, but not much.
I didn't. Okay, see, I didn't actually know that one. I wouldn't have guessed Wisconsin touching Iowa. Eventually I'll get one of these questions right someday.
Northeast
I'll
Iowa is actually Northeast Iowa is beautiful. And Derek, I know you love breweries. Free advertising here for toppling Goliath, but it is like a world-renowned brewery up in Decorah, Northeast Iowa. In Decorah, it doesn't even feel like you're in Iowa. It's like rolling hills. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. So your next trip up to Iowa, you'll have to make a trip up to the closest
no.
part to Wisconsin.
I need to drive around and venture out more next time I go up there.
It's not an easy drive. It's like 3.5 hours from Des Moines, and there's not really like a main highway to get there. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's great. Well, while we're on the topic of Iowa, we'll talk about the state champs, the Iowa State Cyclones, and you know what? Screw it. I'll crack one for the Cyclones. My weekend, man, needed it. So Iowa State has Arkansas State coming to Jack Trice Stadium. The rest of the Big 12 is all in conference season, but Iowa State had an oddly timed bye week. Might play in their favor a little bit. Nonetheless, they still have a oddly timed non-conference game against a middling to below average group of 5 team. What would you like to see from Iowa State in this game, Derek?
What I want to see Saturday is pretty simple. I want to see Iowa State take care of business. I know the fan base is still riding high off the win against Iowa, but the team can't do that. I think the bye week actually came at an interesting time for this team because I would hope that this bye week actually helped them avoid one of those hangover games because, you know, you see where a team gets a big win and they play like absolute dog shit the next week. And a good example of that, you remember Oklahoma State after they beat Oklahoma? They went out the following week and they got
45-3 to UCF, right?
Shit kicked out of them by UCF that nobody saw coming. So
yes, I do.
I want to
remember that.
Run the football with Sama, protect Rocco, and play just a clean game overall. Get the ball to your playmakers and let them do what they do best. Defensively, I'm going to be looking at the linebackers, of course, due to the depth and the defensive line. Can that defensive line get the same push that they had against Iowa 2 weeks ago? They're good enough. Make no mistake about it. They're good enough to push Arkansas State around up front, and I want to see them do that. So, and plus, this is the final so-called tune-up game for this team, and you want to work out all the kinks that you have before conference play gets here. To me, that's what this game is about, is just really taking care of business, working everything out, making sure everything's taken care of, because after this, like, that's when the big boy football starts.
Yeah, you hit on all of it. I do think the bye week, as weird of a time it came at, I think it plays into their advantage. And that you're coming off of this massive, emotional, thrilling win. Everyone should be riding high coming off of that win, but you get so much time. You get time to kind of soak it in a little bit. I know the coaching staff is going to say, yeah, soak it in for one day, but then it's on to the next. When you don't have an opponent waiting for you that next Saturday, naturally, it should be easier to be able to focus on the win and then find a natural point to move on to Arkansas State. So I think in that area, it's good for Iowa State. And then after that, I think there's a bit of a runway for this team. You open up the Big 12 season at Houston and then Baylor at home. Those are games you'll be double-digit favorites in. You should win both of those. So you go out there, you work on every kink you can possibly imagine against Arkansas State and hope that you can continue to do the same in a blowout against Houston, in a blowout against Baylor, and then you're ramping up into potential 5-0, 6-0 territory at West Virginia, UCF at home, which is shaping up to be a huge game. I think you make a great point there to where the bye could help. I think, yeah, you always want to just see the team take care of business. I'm going to focus on Rocco Becht. Rocco proved in the second half against Iowa why he is a top 3 and maybe the best quarterback in the Big 12. I'm comfortable putting him in that discussion with a guy like Cam Rising. But Rocco has yet to play an A-plus game this year, or an A game. He played fine against North Dakota, but there was 3 or 4 throws in the first quarter where he just kind of airmailed a guy that if he completes those, Iowa State probably wins that game 35-3. And then Iowa, of course, worst case scenario, you're backed up inside the 5-yard line for almost the entire first half, it felt like. But to be able to respond and do what he did, that's not the point. The point is, if you could just see Rocco go out, complete 80% of his passes, throw for 230, 40 yards, air it out, get Higgins, Null involved, maybe get Bramer more involved than he's been so far, establish the running game. I think just to see a balanced offensive performance and to see Rocco play an A game instead of a B- game like he opened the year with, I think that's a huge thing. And then if you get out to a big lead, just get out to a big lead and get out of there. Get out of there. You don't need any more injuries, especially on the offensive line, especially with the linebackers. Just get out of there healthy and get ready for a Big 12 title push that they're fully capable of. I think that covers it. I don't have much to say on Arkansas State.
It's a pretty cut and dry week.
The score is going to indicate that they hung with Michigan. They did not. I lost some freaking money because of that stupid backdoor cover, and I'm still pissed off about it. Michigan can't complete a forward pass. Like they just can't do it. And they still were able to run for 400 yards on Arkansas State. I think a competent quarterback would have helped Michigan win 45-3. Iowa State does have a competent quarterback, a more than competent quarterback. I think they should be able to have their way with the Red Wolves.
Maybe
and
Michigan didn't steal enough signs. Maybe they didn't steal enough signs against Arkansas State. Maybe that's why the score was so close.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to get into our picks in just a minute. First, one of our favorite segments. Let's name a random Big 12 quarterback. Aiden's going to give us 3 clues. We're going to see if we can get it.
His whole career was not in the Big 12. I mean, not like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Spent 1 year in the Big 12.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
He had over 11,000 passing yards in his time.
Ugh. Ooh.
His senior year, despite being one of the most exciting offenses in America, they had an underwhelming record.
Okay. Okay, I think, Jake, do you have a guess? Because I think I know who it is.
I don't yet. Electric offense. Makes me think it's a Texas Tech or a Baylor. Trying to think guys who would have transferred in as a senior.
It's a newer school. It's not the newest school, but it's a newer school. I think I know who it is if you want me to go. I'll let you come up with a guess, so at least.
Part of me wants to say 𝗀𝗄𝗄𝗏 just because he played so long, wasn't that good, but easily could have racked up 11,000 yards in his time. And BYU's offense was pretty good last year, but they were disappointing. So I'll go 𝗀𝗄𝗏𝗏, but I think it's probably wrong.
Well, it's not. There's no way it's 𝗀𝗏 because 𝗀𝗏 was at USC, Pitt, and then went to BYU. And I know he wasn't good at Pitt.
Well, if you play 9 years, you can afford like.
Yeah, that was my thought. Is like, I know he played 6 or 7 years, so that'll be my guess, but I know it's wrong.
I'm gonna guess it's Geno Smith from West Virginia.
Yes.
Okay.
Nailed
That was a good one. That was probably the easiest ones that I could get, at least because Geno threw for a ton of yards prior to that, and when they came in the Big 12, like I think they were like 6-0.
Okay.
Yeah, they started
6-0 or something.
I just it up. I think they started 5-0.
5-0. They went to Lubbock
5 straight.
They went to Lubbock and got blown out. That's what happened.
Uh-huh.
I remember that exact game.
I was thinking of a transfer. I didn't think about playing your whole career and then moving to the Big 12. Because I was thinking for a second, like, Geno Smith didn't transfer, did he? And then I put the pieces together.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, the 4 new ones that came in they don't have anybody. I mean, even like BYU didn't have anybody. Houston didn't have anybody. Cincinnati didn't have anybody. UCF. So like those 4 schools didn't have anybody. But I was thinking it's got to be TCU or West Virginia, and then I think we've talked about before.
Andy Dalton never played in the Big 12. I think his last year was the year before they moved.
Was 2010 would have been Dalton's last year when they went to that Rose Bowl and beat Wisconsin, and then I think 𝗀cie Paul was like one of the quarterbacks. It was the first one, wasn't it?
That was the first episode.
Yeah, he was after Andy Dalton, so that's pretty funny. We come full circle here. So
I thought about giving a hint about Tavon Austin, but I think that would have been way too easy.
Tavon Austin highlight tape. Derek, have you heard this nugget about Geno Smith? I know Aiden's probably heard this. You can go find this on the Des Moines Register. I think Randy Peterson wrote an article about it, but Iowa State was hanging with West Virginia one year at halftime, and as Wally Szczerbiak, no, not Wally Szczerbiak. Gosh, that's an NBA player. Is it Wally Burnham?
Wally Burnham.
Is that right? Wally Burnham.
Yeah.
Is that his name? He was Iowa State's defensive coordinator. He was probably in his 70s at the time, just running off the field, and Geno just ran him straight over. Oh, and Wally was like pissed about it. Like Wally thought it was intentional. I think either Randy Peterson or Travis Hines wrote an article about it, about how they thought it was intentional. But there's your Geno Smith fun fact of the day.
Hey, the man's still playing.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been good for Seattle.
Yeah, he's been very underrated.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Oh wow.
For those not watching the video and listening on the podcast, from the Des Moines Register, Burnham knows all about his run-ins with the former West Virginia star, whose jaw was broken by teammate, I'm not going to say his name, during a locker room confrontation Tuesday, reportedly over a $600 airplane ticket at halftime of the Iowa State-West Virginia game in 2012 at Jack Trice Stadium. Smith ran into Burnham as the teams headed towards the locker room. I was just walking, said Burnham, who was 71 in 2012. He pushed me. One of the first Cyclones on the scene was Wally's son, Shane, who coaches the defensive tackles. The name just let me know that is from Iowa Everywhere's own Randy Peterson, who at the time was at the Des Moines Register. That's gosh, that's quite the story. But let's do it. Let's make some picks. It's going to be a good week. I'm feeling it. It can only go up from here. I had another losing week. I went 2-3, and I was probably closer to 0-5 than I was 3-2. I was cutting a thin margin. It's been a rough week, my friend. Rough week in Las Vegas. So let's start with the premier game of the week. The Cougars of Houston going to Cincinnati to take on the Bearcats. Cincinnati is 5.5-point favorites. Over under set at 48.5. What's your side?
You scared me for a minute there. I was like, are we talking about the big game already? But then you threw this on me. So that's pretty good. You got me there. This is the battle of the cellar dwellers, as I would like to say, and a battle of the cats. I don't trust either offense here, and the defenses will likely take over this game. If you were a fan of offense, I would suggest you turn the channel. I'm taking the under here. I know it's set pretty low at 48.5, but I don't see this game getting above that. I'm taking the under here.
Is it bad that this is probably the game I spent the most time thinking on, because I was trying to decide between Houston or Cincinnati, and I couldn't justify taking either side. And then I thought after 10 minutes, you know what? Why not just take the under? These teams are not good on offense, so I could have saved myself some brain power by just going for the under from the start. I'm also going to take the under with you. This is a winner go home game, I think. A loser leaves town type. Kansas hitting the road from Morgantown. West Virginia is 2.5-point favorites at home. Essentially a pick 'em if you take out home field. 57.5 is the over under. Where are you going?
They need to sign a contract between Neil Brown and Jaylen Daniels. Loser goes home. Daniels either gets benched or Brown gets fired. That's what should be at stake here. I don't trust West Virginia's defense after what I saw from that Pitt game and against Penn State a couple weeks ago, but I really don't trust Kansas anything right now for that matter. Since this game's in Morgantown, I'm going to go with the Mountaineers to cover the spread here.
I kind of disagree with you there. I trust most things about Kansas except the quarterback spot right now. I don't trust much with West Virginia or Neil Brown. Just a head scratcher of a season for him so far. I'm going to take Kansas in hopes that Daniels looks somewhat like the Daniels of old. I'll lay the points with the Jayhawks. They're getting 2.5. Certainly don't feel
totally
great
fair.
about it.
No,
certainly don't feel great
totally
about
fair.
it.
You can't with Kansas the way they're playing right now.
Iowa State at home against Arkansas State. 22-point favorites last I looked. 51.5 is your total. I'll go first with this one. I'm going to take the under. It's your classic trap game. I don't think Iowa State really will be in fear of losing at any point. But I do think this is a lower scoring, comfortable win for Iowa State. Give me somewhere in the range of like 30-13. I think that under should comfortably hit.
The big questions I mentioned earlier is how Iowa State can respond. Will they be ready for this, or this is going to be like one of those hangover trap games? The Cyclones will win, but I think I'm agreed with you. That spread to me is a little tad high. I guess the over/under for my liking. So I'm going to take the under here in there, and just like against North Dakota, I picked the under, and that works. So I'm going to do the same here and pick under 51.5. I just don't see either offense putting up more than like 30 in this game. So I think it's going to be like maybe 35-10, somewhere in that range, or maybe even lower. So I'm taking the under here.
I know this is one of our favorite teams to talk about, one of our favorite teams to watch. It's one of my least favorite teams to bet against because I've done it too many times this year. Arizona State goes on the road to Lubbock. The Red Raiders are favored by 3. The over/under is 60.5. Derek?
This is a fight that's going to go the full length of the game. A few years ago, I probably would have set the over/under at 100 and still taken the over, just where these programs were a few years ago. Times have changed, but I feel like Texas Tech is by far the best offense that Arizona State has seen this year. And with Taj Brooks back for Texas Tech, that's a big part of that offense. I'll take the Red Raiders. I'm not confident in that at all, but just because it's in Lubbock, I feel a little bit better about it. But if I'm a true bettor here, I would probably stay away from this game as far as possible, because this is one of those, to me, this is really going to be a pick'em game, a coin toss for me. But I'm going to take Texas Tech covering here.
I should clarify. I don't know if there's a single Big 12 game this week I'm comfortable putting money on. Like, I had such a hard time coming up with picks. And honestly, with how the season's gone, it'd be natural if I went 7-1 when I feel like I'm just throwing darts with my eyes closed. I'm going to go Arizona State. It's been one of my rules this year where just stay away from Texas Tech. They have screwed me time and time again. I know Tech lit up North Texas, but it's hard to forget what Washington State did to them. And that loss honestly aged pretty well. They just beat Washington. But I've seen Arizona State grind out a win. I think they can do it again. But yeah, I don't feel great about it. Give me the Sun Devils +3. Another game in the state of Texas. One more non-conference game other than Iowa State. I think this has got to be it for non-conference games for the Big 12, because it's a real conference and they don't play Sun Belt teams in the middle of November. TCU is favored by 2.5 points on the road at SMU. And I didn't write on the over-under. I don't know why.
It's 57.5. 57.5 is the over and under. This is the battle for the Iron Skillet, man. It's the Sonny Dykes Bowl. Dykes was the SMU head coach before jumping ship to TCU. And with that said, I am more of a Fort Worth guy than a Dallas guy. The stockyard, the drinks, the food are top notch. Also, one more fun fact, it costs over $60,000 per year to go to either school. So if you want to donate a kidney or sell your parents' house, you might be able to apply at either one of those schools. All jokes aside, SMU was shut down by BYU's defense a couple weeks ago. And I don't think TCU will be that dominant defensively, but it'll be enough to give SMU and Preston Stone some trouble. And despite losing last week, I think I really like the way TCU's offense looked with Josh Hoover at quarterback. I'm going to take the Horned Frogs covering this game.
This is probably the only game of the week that I'll bet, and I'm on the same side of you. SMU's bad. TCU is going to be motivated coming off of that loss. They're going to be extra motivated knowing that it's the Sonny Dykes Bowl. Give me the Horned Frogs -2.5. I'll probably play that one in real life.
Good play.
This game, gosh, just throw a blindfold on me and just give me a dart to try and hit the board. It's Baylor at Colorado. Last I checked, the Buffs favored by 1 point at home. Over-under is 54.5. Derek, heads or tails?
Man, this is to me like the Arizona State and Texas Tech game. I would probably stay away from this, but if I'm going to have to pick one, I'm going to go with the Buffs at home. I worry about Colorado protecting Sanders, but I think they'll make enough big plays, and Baylor won't be able to keep up offensively with Sawyer Robinson on the road. So I'm going to take Colorado here, and I say they cover by at least 3 points. Now, I'm confident maybe that they cover by a field goal here.
I don't know if I trust anything in the world less than Colorado coming off of a flashy win, but I also don't know if I can trust Baylor in any circumstances ever. I'm going to take my chances that Dave Aranda got to his team with that emotional speech on the sidelines, and who knows, maybe Baylor found a top half of the Big 12 quarterback in Sawyer Robinson. I'll just take Baylor +1 on the road. And,
taking a flyer.
Yeah, we'll hope for the best. I got nothing on that one, man. Nothing. No read. Absolutely zero. This game, man, I'm excited for this one. It is a 9:00 kickoff in Provo. Kansas State, fresh off of a dominant win over Arizona, hitting the road to face 3-0 BYU. The Wildcats are favored by a touchdown. Over under set at 47.5. I'm pumped for this one, Derek.
You know, playing BYU in Provo at night is a tall task for any team, but if there's a team who can walk out of that crazy environment right now, I think it's Kansas State. Running the football well and playing great defense travels, and the Wildcats can do both. I know Kansas State, I think they'll hold BYU to under 17 points in this game, and the only thing I'm actually worried about for Kansas State is Avery Johnson's really playing his first true road game, and this is going to be a wild environment in LaVell Edwards Stadium in Provo, but I'm still taking Kansas State to cover here. I could see them winning by double digits here late. I could see them pulling away in the fourth quarter by at least 10 here.
BYU was really good at home last year. They lost only 2 games. They didn't make a bowl game either, so they only lost twice at home. They were really bad on the road. One loss was by a touchdown to Oklahoma, a really good Oklahoma team, and the other loss was their lone blowout at home, and that was the Abu Sama game against Iowa State. I would feel comfortable taking BYU in this game, but I feel a little more comfortable with the higher scoring game. It's the first true Big 12 after dark. I guess, never mind. There was a couple last year. First true Big 12 after dark this year. Things are going to get weird. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere. I'll take the over, but I do think Kansas State wins. I feel decent about that one. And then,
agreed.
I guess we just got one left to go. It's Utah at Oklahoma State. Huge freaking game in Stillwater. Biggest Big 12 game of the season. Probably one of the 5 biggest Big 12 games of the year overall. The Pokes are favored by 3 on their home field. The over-under is 51.5. Utah's first Big 12 game, the prohibitive conference favorites, going against probably the best program in the old Big 12. Should I say any more? I don't think I need to.
No. 2 of the 3 longest tenured head coaches are coaching in this game with Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy. These have been 2 of the most consistent programs over the last 15 plus years. And we're honestly truly lucky to have both of these coaches in our conference. Cam Rising is back, but I still do worry about his hand. Stillwater be rocking. And I think we see hot hand Alan Bowman on Saturday. Welcome to the Big 12 Utah, but I'm going to be drinking a pint, taking the points, and taking the pokes in this game. Give me the Cowboys to win this game here.
Did that thing
That's
ding?
money.
That was the first. I think that was the first time I heard the ding.
It's
Like
got a little bit of
ka-ching.
motor in it. It's got
I
some
love
juice
it.
in there.
Well, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take Utah just because I'm not going to take anything from last week. Cam Rising didn't play. As long as Cam Rising is healthy, I don't know if I'll pick against Utah this season. I know it's a tough environment to play, and I don't know if there's a coach I trust more in a big game than Mike Gundy, but if there is one, it's probably Kyle Whittingham because, like you said, he's been doing it just as, I guess he's been doing it longer. And I just got this idea. So Cam Rising, Alan Bowman, not exactly a battle of inexperienced quarterbacks. I'm just going to go through the NFL schedule from this weekend. Okay, so the Colts play the Bears. You get Caleb Williams against Anthony Richardson. Both guys younger than Bowman and Rising. Texans against the Vikings. CJ Stroud is definitely younger. Sam Darnold, I would not be shocked if he was younger than those guys, and Darnold's been in the league 6 years. Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield. It hasn't been that long since Baker's been gone, but yeah, I think he's got them a little bit. Malik Willis against Will Levis, Packers Titans, definitely both younger than Bowman and Rising.
This all day.
Bryce Young against, who knows, maybe Gardner Minshew. Oh wait, no, Bryce Young got benched. Andy Dalton against Gardner Minshew. Okay, those guys are older. I don't know who the Dolphins backup is. Geno Smith, we talked about him. Lions Cardinals, nope. Raven, okay. Is Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy's probably younger than Alan Bowman, isn't he? Let me look it
same
up.
year. So they would have been, Brock would have been 2018. Bowman's freshman year was 2018.
And Iowa State beat Tech at Jack Trice Stadium. That was one of those games that was actually closer. Okay, so Purdy was born December 27, 1999.
For those that may not remember here, believe it or not, Alan Bowman and Kyler Murray actually played one another whenever he was at Oklahoma, and they were playing in Lubbock in 2018. I remember that because I was actually at that game. So Kyler Murray and Alan Bowman played each other in college.
Purdy has Bowman by like 2 months. So if that just puts into perspective, that was a really stupid exercise, but these quarterbacks are old, is my point. Whereas, like, probably a third of the quarterbacks that play on Sunday will be younger than these guys. I cannot wait for this game.
These quarterbacks are older than my grandmother.
But as we said, Derek and I both had 2 and 3 weeks, another tie. So I don't get a minute of fame. I don't need it. I don't deserve it. So it's going to our producer, Aiden Wyatt, who does deserve it. And Aiden, what are you going to talk about? What could possibly be on your mind?
Matt Campbell has a chance to tie Dan McCarney's record of wins at Iowa State this weekend. I feel like some people are talking about it. I'm not going to act like no one is talking about it, but there was a point before the season where there were a lot of people saying if Campbell wins 5 or 6, 7 games, he's on the hot seat. I think that Matt Campbell deserves whatever he wants, even if that means a lifetime contract. He is the best thing that's ever happened to Iowa State football. I get that Dan McCarney was kind of the one who started the modern era of Iowa State football, but you can't ignore that Matt Campbell is the best thing that's ever happened to Iowa State football. He should have a lifetime contract. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Aiden. Good work. Gosh, he's so good at this. I would have never thought of that.
I agree with everything you said there.
Aiden and I obviously weren't around for enough of the McCarney era, and we certainly weren't around for the Johnny Orr era in basketball, but I think there's a lot of similarities in those guys to where when you tell the story of Iowa State in 200 years, hopefully college athletics is still around by then. I doubt it. But when you look back, you're never going to think like, oh my gosh, the Dan McCarney era, look at all that success, or the Johnny Orr era, look at all the Sweet 16s they went to, because they didn't. Look at all the look at all the 8-9 win seasons that Dan McCarney had. Well, he didn't. But what success followed those guys does not happen without them. And Dan McCarney made it possible for Matt Campbell to do what he did with the infrastructure that he built, with the fan support that he built, with the upgrades that he made possible. And same thing goes for Johnny Orr. Larry 𝗀cie doesn't do what he did in Ames. Tim Floyd doesn't do what he did in Ames without what Johnny Orr did. So yeah, good work, Aiden. I think that's going to do it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. We cover
subscribe,
a
comment.
lot on this program, man. I love doing it. It keeps me so. I'm more engaged in the Big 12 than I have been in a really, really long time. Like right now, I feel as locked in Big 12 football as I do Big 12 basketball, and I don't know if I can ever confidently say that I've been like as locked into football as I was basketball in my life. So it's been fun, man. We cover a lot.
It's addicting. It's addicting. These games.
It is.
It's the most entertaining conference in all of college football. It's America's conference because it's just so entertaining, and you never know what's going to happen week to week.
And we've only gotten like an appetizer. We've gotten one full Big 12 game. We've gotten a couple non-conference Big 12 games where these teams play each other, but we have just like barely scratched the surface, and we go all in head first this week. This is your spot for all your Big 12 coverage. Thank you so much for tuning in to Bigger Than 12 on Iowa Everywhere. Thank you to Freedom Tire and Quentin Crowner's team over there for supporting the show and sponsoring this program. We'll be back next week on Iowa Everywhere.